In the School of Communication, the differences between how males and females communicate have been tested time and time again, with very consistent results, but do these differences hold in sibling relationships?
In order to begin answering this question, we released a survey through Qualtrics asking a variety of questions related to the topic. In total, we got 18 responses. Of those 18 responses, only 6 were male and the other 12 were female. While this was no groundbreaking survey due to the limited capacity allowed, it did provide some insight into the topic. In order to maximize the information drawn from the survey, the demographic was limited to individuals between the ages of 18 and 26 that had at least one younger sibling, as we decided to focus specifically on the older sibling's perspective.
The first goal of the survey was to determine how close our participants were with their siblings. We did this by asking them questions like,
How close would you consider you and your siblings?
how do others view your relationship with your sibling?
And also by asking them to rate their agreement with the statement,
I consider my sibling to be my best friend. These questions gave us a good place to start as we found that females tended to feel as though they were closer to their siblings than males did.
While the majority of males only somewhat agreed to consider their siblings their best friends, the overwhelming majority of females strongly agreed that they were best friends with theirs.
This information is important to take into account as the amount of self-disclosure usually reflects the closeness of the relationship. So we could already theorize that females likely disclose more to their siblings than males.
The survey dug into self-disclosure by providing several scales in which participants were asked to rate how likely they would be to tell their siblings about personal problems, past relationships, partying habits, and secrets.
Unsurprisingly, females were more likely to tell their siblings about all of these topics than males, especially when taking into consideration that they saw themselves as being closer to their siblings.
When it came to advice giving and receiving, the majority of males and females believed their siblings would come to them for advice. However, females were more likely to go to their siblings for advice than males.
This is most likely related to the unfortunate belief that is reinforced in men that they aren't supposed to seek assistance, although the answers were split enough to contest this belief when it comes to family, because while they were not very likely to ask their siblings for advice, most would, given the right circumstances.
The next topic we covered was conflict between siblings. We wanted to know how likely it was for our participants to argue with their siblings and whether or not they preferred to avoid conflict with their siblings when possible.
While both males and females preferred to avoid conflict, females tended to argue more often with their siblings. This was likely due to the higher likelihood for females to self-disclose over males. Next, we had participants examine their relationships with their siblings at a deeper level. We had them identify whether or not they felt they were more self-centered, more controlling, more of a peacemaker, more outgoing, and more of an attention seeker than their siblings.
Males and females found their siblings to be more self-centered than they were. Males, however, felt that they were more controlling than their siblings, which is consistent with the widely held beliefs of masculinity.
Males and females saw themselves as being equally outgoing as their siblings. However, females found their siblings to be more attention-seeking. Males found themselves to be the peacemaker more often than females overall.
We then had participants rate dimensions we felt important to any relationship, these dimensions being trust, fairness, affection, respect, and understanding. We found that both males and females scored all of these dimensions as high, all except for affection, in which males scored lower.
Lastly, we asked participants how similar they felt their siblings were to them. We found that females consider themselves far more similar to their siblings than males did. This is most likely due to the reinforced behavior in males that they are supposed to be more independent.
In conclusion, our study sought to understand the differences between males and females and their relationships with their younger siblings.
Conducting a survey was definitely advantageous for us, as it gave us better insight into this topic.
Based on what the survey uncovered, we are able to infer that females usually have a closer relationship with their siblings than males, allowing them to self-disclose more. In turn, this leads to females being more likely to engage in conflict with their siblings than males.
We can also infer that males tend to distance themselves from their siblings when it comes to certain aspects of relationships that are viewed as unmanly.
This all stems back to each individual's childhood depending on behaviors and gender roles that were reinforced in them as they grew up.
If anything, we have learned that these behaviors and gender roles tend to play a big role in their relationship with their siblings. We hope you enjoyed this awesome video.